There was some information here out a couple of days ago where UK, Germany, and France not only backing Ukraine and Russia dialogue, saying, yeah, let's talk, but they also have said, hey, you know what? We also want to give some support to Ukraine after the war is over in the nature of sort of a stabilization force, a European stabilization force inside of Ukraine, which will include weapons and ammunition and other kinds of things for their self-defense, which has Russia kind of upset and saying, hey, this is a creeping alliance that you're trying to get, which is what we've been fighting for against. What impact do you think this is going to have in that war?
Truthfully, none, other than reaffirm Russia's commitment to extending the war until Ukraine ceases to represent a threat. What they've done is promise that, yes, give us the opportunity, we'll make it a threat all over again. We'll reverse whatever gains you've made strategically. We'll turn Ukraine into the battering ram that it once was. I think they're overly optimistic. I think Ukraine, certainly when you leave Kiev and you go out into the countryside and you deal with the people that are living there, is exhausted, and the state itself as an apparatus is crumbling. Now, the bad news is that President Putin just gave a speech in St. Petersburg. I've got to go back and read it a couple more times, but it conveys the impression to me, at least in the translation, that he plans, at least for the moment, to stay the course. And he's told his countrymen, we need to keep on fighting. I have not heard any promise of victory or completion. That worries me a little bit, because I think there are still people in Moscow who hope against hope that they're going to get something from Trump that they can take back to the bank, that President Trump can provide them with an agreement that will be respected by the Europeans, that will really end this war and eliminate the permanent danger to Moscow that currently resides in Kiev. I don't think so. I don't think they can expect anything from President Trump in this administration. President Trump can't guarantee a damn thing right now to the Iranians, which is a big problem. And no one trusts us anymore. Why President Putin holds out the hope that he can is beyond my comprehension, because he doesn't seem to understand the same people that are pushing war against Iran to the end, to the bitter end, whether or not it hurts us or helps us, they don't care. This is all about their interests. Those are the same people that are pushing the war against Russia in Ukraine. There's no daylight between the two groups. They're the same people. I hope that President Putin will come to that conclusion, because there's no way for this to improve unless he does it himself militarily. He can't rely on us for anything.
And we'll see where that ends up going too. But an interesting, Sergei Lavrov made a comment related to the current dynamics here. And he has always been, I mean, by his very nature, a very diplomatic individual. But at least to my ears, I'm starting to hear a little bit more aggravation in his tone. And one wonders if that represents a change. Watch this.
Британия, Франция и Германия вместе с Зеленским подписали некий документ о стратегической поддержке этого режима, о подготовке к развертыванию стабилизационных сил, оккупационных сил, на том, что останется от Украины после конфликта. Договоренность о том, что Украине будут поставляться дополнительные дальнобойные вооружения для того, чтобы бить по российской территории, в том числе бить вглубь российской территории. Я не знаю, как на этом фоне можно о каких-то переговорах говорить. Наверное, всем надо серьезно отнестись к тому, что сказал президент Путин. Сейчас все зависит не от переговоров, а от действий наших героев на фронте.
So it almost sounds like he's kind of starting to get into your camp about, hey, forget about negotiations. Maybe we should go to offensive. And then, because Gary is amazing, he actually has that soundbite from Putin saying what Lavrov mentioned there.
Вот и это письмо, о котором вы сейчас сказали, оно действительно с элементами хамства. Это что? Это способ создания условий для личных встреч и переговоров, или это создание обстановки, при которой вообще на самом деле невозможно проводить никаких личных встреч? Я думаю, что это второе. И поэтому обращаться нужно не к авторам этого письма, не к любителям эпистолярного жанра, а к нашим бойцам на линии боевого соприкосновения. И вот обращаясь к ним, я хочу сказать: товарищи солдаты и матросы, товарищи старшины и мичманы, товарищи офицеры, адмиралы и генералы, вся страна смотрит на вас. Вся страна гордится вами и надеется на вас. Работайте, братья.
So might that be, because that was a pretty emphatic statement there. Do you think that that could signal that he may be ready to turn to that and to do on the ground what you've suggested they probably should have done a long time ago? Is that possible?
I'm reluctant to impute that to him. Looking at the statement at the end, work brothers, I'm told that translates more accurately to keep fighting brothers. So I interpret that as stay frosty, stay on mission, continue to do what you're doing. I haven't heard anything beyond that. Now, Lavrov, when he speaks in the great tradition of people like Witte, Gorshakov, Nesselvoda, other great Russian foreign ministers of the Tsarist period. He is a preeminent diplomat. We have no one in his class. And what he's saying, I think, is extremely meaningful because he's closer to what you were discussing earlier with me. He's pointing out that this is beyond rudeness. And that would be my argument to President Putin. These people are too dumb to understand what is rude and what is not. This is just blatant aggression dressed up in new clothing. It provides nothing. It reflects nothing of any good for Russia. And I would argue nothing good for us, because I know people here think it doesn't matter, but I am someone who thinks this war should end. And I think the truth about this Ukrainian state and who's running it, what's happened to that country and the people in it should reach the American people. They should get an honest, objective assessment through the mainstream media. They don't. They get lies and more lies and more lies. That makes it harder. So when you ask somebody, what do you think we should do? You don't get the kind of answer that we really need, which is bring this thing to an end as quickly as possible and recognize and accept the legitimate national security interests of Russia. We, as a great power, demand that our legitimate interests be recognized. And so do Russia, so do the Russians, so do the Chinese, and so do the Iranians. Everything is a function of interest. It's not, contrary to what President Trump thinks, a function of, well, I really get along well with him. He and I are good friends. We have a great understanding. That's all bullshit. It's about interests. Interests. Those have to be respected, and it's a matter of determining what they are and balancing them effectively within the framework of an agreement that the regional powers can all sign up for. That's where we should be focused. We're not. And until we focus there, I don't think the Russians have much choice. They have to press ahead.
Well, and what do you think is going to be possible? Because if they just keep on staying frosty, as you said a second ago, and they just keep on going, I mean, I thought, and I think you and I have over a year ago, I thought it would be difficult for the Ukrainian army to maintain its solvency into this summer. And yet here we are in the first part of the summer, and they're still solvent. Now, I'm told that it's a lot weaker at the front line than it has been, but it's still holding. How much longer can it go on with this without Russia changing its fighting doctrine?
Well, solvent is probably not a good word. What the Ukrainian facade is, because it has not been directly destroyed and challenged, seems real. There is a government in Kiev. It's not popularly elected. It's a dictatorship. It's oppressive. It's far more Stalinist than anything else. It's full of all sorts of people that have criminal inclinations and are stealing as much wealth as they possibly can before this terrible nightmare ends. And the only solution to this for the Russians is to cross that river. Because until you cross that river in strength, The facade remains untouched, and that's what's in front of them right now. It's a facade, just a facade, and that has to be destroyed. Once they destroy it, everybody will shut up, Dan. You know, how many people raised their voices and said, "What about the NVA? Well, haven't they been defeated? What about the Viet Cong?" You know, no. Suddenly, nobody talked about it. Went away. Why? Because the government in South Vietnam fell. Poof! It was gone. The Vietnamese military evaporated. Poof! It was gone. And what did we do? We left. And we didn't talk about it anymore. That's what will eventually happen in Ukraine.
And, you know, I can't help but think you mentioned a minute ago about Vietnam and about Iran, et cetera. And then now here, my experience with the Taliban in the Afghanistan war, how many times we said, "Oh yeah, we finally defeated the Taliban, and this is what victory looks like," General Allen said in 2013, before we end up walking out in shame in 2021. And here again, it's an anecdote, but this is from Yulia Mendel, who used to be the press secretary for Zelensky in his first few years in office before she left. This is what she writes now, because she's a pretty big critic now. This is just minutes ago, actually. She writes, "Shocking reports from near Kovel in western Volyn regions. Locals claim villagers armed with shovels fought off forced mobilization officers attempting to recruit men. According to local channels, the confrontation turned physical, with residents pushing back hard. This situation highlights the growing tension around forced mobilization efforts in Ukraine." The question is, how much longer can they continue to do these forced things? Do you think that there is ever an end to that, or will they be able to just indefinitely force people into fighting?
Well, as long as we continue to ship large quantities of cash to the government in Kiev, whether it comes from European sources or American, and they're still receiving great quantities of cash on a routine basis, they can pay the people to go out and do what they're doing. If the cash stops and they can't pay them, then that sort of business will stop. That's the sad truth of the matter. You've got to cut it off. It's back to, how do you stop the Israelis from their mass murder and expulsion project in Gaza? You cut them off. That's all. We aren't willing to do that. And apparently we're not willing to do that in Ukraine either. So what you just showed everybody, and the sad part is I know that part of Ukraine, and those people are very definitely different from the rest of Ukraine. These people are Ukrainians in the most Western sense of the word. They were under the Habsburgs for over 100 years, almost 200 years. So I feel badly for the Ukrainians, and I feel badly for the people in the Middle East, because they are sort of in a death grip with their opponents, and prying them apart is not easy. I think the Ukrainian thing could be more quickly solved today than at any point since this war began. But I see no willingness, no resolve, no interest in doing that.
Yeah, and that is just so heartbreaking to watch. I mean, people literally beating with shovels, somebody trying to take their male family members off to likely die in a war. I mean, it's just almost a death sentence to go in there. And yet that is a daily affair in Ukraine. But
well, I think it's another good advertisement for the National Rifle Association. so much for giving up your personal arms, right?
Yeah, there's that too. Well, listen, Doug, we really appreciate you bringing all this stuff to light, especially on these two issues. And we see how money seems to be at the core of both of these conflicts, and necessary to get them over with. And the infusion is a big problem. So a lot of these aren't really tactical issues or even diplomatic issues as much as they are cash, and cash rules, as they say. And we see graphic evidence of that here. So thanks for bringing that to our light. And also, just as a reminder, man, you guys, I know a lot of people can't get enough of Macgregor. So go to MacGregorWarrior.substack.com, and you can get all you need. And by the way, Doug, I forgot to mention to you, but I was just in Tbilisi, Georgia, at an economic forum conference that a number of folks that were at, and man, every time your name came up, everybody says, oh my God, we love Doug Macgregor. And people wanted to talk to me just because I knew you. So your fame is growing far and wide in Europe and elsewhere. And people can understand why that is, and they can go there to find out for themselves. So thank you.
Well, where were all these girls when I was at West Point? It's so depressing.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for that. I appreciate it.
All right. And we will see you guys later on today at 1 o'clock. We're going to have Professor Morandi back with us today. And I promise you, do not miss this show. 1 p.m. today with Professor Saeed Mohammed Morandi, who will give us the inside scoop of what is thinking in the Iranian side and what prospects do we have that any of these memorandums or anything else is going to bring it into that war. Thank you very much. And we'll see you then on the Daniel Davis Deep Dive. I don't try to talk you into buying gold or tell you how to run your stock portfolio, but there is a way you can help us. Subscribe, hit that like button, and share this with somebody you love.